Hello, I'm Pastor Joseph from Aaron Presbyterian Church in Knoxville, Tennessee.
And I'm Pastor Marilyn from Forsyth and Barnesville Presbyterian Churches and Ukirk Campus Ministry at Mercer University. Welcome as we conclude our Lenten study series on wisdom.
Our passage for today crosses in the New Testament with James chapter 3, verses 13 through 18. And although we recommend the Common English Bible or the New Revised Standard Version Updated Edition, you can use any translation you like. Comparing different translations is a great way to gain greater insight into Scripture.
Last week, we discussed wisdom's tomb, focusing on Ecclesiastes 6:10 through 7:4. In that video, we talked about how Ecclesiastes tries to answer the question of how to respond when our study of wisdom reaches its limits. We also talked about the ways in which Ecclesiastes recognized the inherent unfairness of life and welcomed the wisdom gained at the tomb. So far in this series, we've talked about 4 different views of Scripture and what they offer us, the value and the education of wisdom. In wisdom's hiddenness, we rooted ourselves in the fear or awe of the Lord. In wisdom's world, we immersed ourselves in the relational and playfulness of wisdom with God. In wisdom's desire, we saw the holiness and hope in our own desire, connection, and intimate love. Wrestling with wisdom's tomb, we stood at the edge of what we can know and of life itself, and found ourselves challenged to grow in our experience of holy joy, even in the midst of the unfairness of life and the shadow of death. Now we turn to wisdom's expression.
If we are pursuing wisdom, then our discipleship should never just be an intellectual exercise. It should also be lived experience. Wisdom is not about knowing more than other people. It's an orientation towards truth. Persons who attain wisdom will think more deeply, be more discerning, have a keener insight into the complexities and nuances of decision-making. Today, much of public discourse occurs in highly divisive terms, and many people choose to silo themselves into echo chambers which reflect back to them only that which they already believe.
Our culture is also wrestling with the arrival of generative AI. What to use it for, how to use it responsibly and appropriately, when its use crosses an ethical line, and when its use contributes to the wholeness of the world. These circumstances show us just how much we need to be expressing wisdom, not just studying it.
I think there are 2 kinds of faith. There's professed faith and functional faith. The first is what we say we believe, and the second is the way we express and enact our beliefs. The letter of James focuses heavily on enacting our faith and challenges us to narrow the distance between what we confess and what we express. For example, we often take on a spiritual practice or discipline, such as fasting, during the season of Lent. But then those practices fall away after Easter. Easter comes and we go back to the way things were before Ash Wednesday, whether the changes we made during Lent were beneficial or not.
Yet James asserts that faith is lived not in the professed beliefs or the seasonal disciplines or fasts, but in the actions we take day in and day out, in every season and in every year.
James calls us to practice what we preach, pray, and study. For me, that dovetails well into wisdom's practical spirituality, which is generally more focused on the lived experience of God's creation and relationships among God's people. James's emphasis on wisdom's expression in our everyday lives is an important part of wise and faithful living.
Ultimately, James is interested less in our salvation after we die and more in how we express that we are saved here on earth. James' wisdom is that a distinctly Christian vision of the world does not remove us from addressing the commonplace obligations that come with day-to-day life. We all look forward to the day when Christ comes again and establishes a new heaven and a new earth, but that doesn't mean we get to pretend like this creation and these human relationships don't matter.
James won't let us get by with ignoring wisdom's expression in our lifestyles. James makes a distinction between wisdom that comes from above and wisdom that is from the earth. And earlier in this series, we used the term conventional wisdom to make a similar distinction. Conventional wisdom, wisdom which comes from the earth, tends to be stuck, tends to become inflexible. On the other hand, we've looked at a variety of different examples of wisdom literature in this series.
The core testimony of Proverbs, the counter testimony of Ecclesiastes, the hymn to wisdom in the middle of Job, and the love poems of Song of Songs.
Through it all, we've seen that wisdom is never an achievement we unlock or even a status we attain. It's an orientation, a pursuit, a process through which we continue to receive correction and grow. We move towards expressing the heavenly wisdom of God's righteousness and step away from the earthly wisdom of congratulating ourselves on being right. If we don't do that, then we end up in the kinds of envy and selfish ambition that leads to disorder and wickedness of every kind.
To my Presbyterian ears, this is the worst kind of censure, since we prioritize decency and order in so much of our communal life. Decency and orderliness, however, shouldn't lead to a stale faith or stuckness. James lists qualities which offer us a way to balance our commitment to decency and order: purity, peaceableness, gentleness, a willingness to yield, and mercifulness. In our Presbyterian tradition, ordained persons promise to further the peace, unity, and purity of the church. This promise stands rooted in James' reflection that the good fruit of a faithful life becomes tangible when we manifest these qualities.
The world in which we're all called to minister is constantly changing, and from where we sit, the rate of change appears to be accelerating. Because life is ever changing and because few circumstances repeat themselves exactly, the wise are the ones with the vigilance, flexibility, and right thinking to meet life in all its contingencies with grace, compassion, and understanding. James gives us a benchmark by which we can measure how faithfully we are navigating God's changing world. These qualities are the expression of heavenly wisdom in earthly actions and relationships.
I am so grateful to have had the opportunity to take up this study of wisdom with all y'all. I hope it laid the groundwork for continuing discussions for how we can express wisdom in more than just Bible studies and in every aspect of our lives.
Revisiting wisdom literature in a new context with such an excellent friend and colleague has helped me grow as a disciple. I want to particularly thank the faith communities who support Pastor Marilyn's ministry: Forsyth Presbyterian Church, Barnesville Presbyterian Church, and UKirk Campus Ministry at Mercer University, for sharing her with my congregation during this study. Her scholarship and perspective has been a gift to me and to the people who are Aaron Presbyterian Church.
And I am deeply grateful that Pastor Joseph invited me to join him in reworking and producing this year's study on wisdom together. I appreciate his gifts, insight, and groundwork that made this series possible, and the community that is Aaron Presbyterian Church, with whom I have gotten to walk a little more closely this Lenten season. As we bring this study to a close, we encourage you to revisit the Lenten devotional booklet you received, to rewatch these videos from time to time, and to always keep reading and studying Scripture, which enables us to recognize wisdom in the streets and public squares, in human relationships, and in creation.
We're going to turn things over to your small group so that y'all can continue this conversation among yourselves. Remember that we are eager to hear any questions y'all have, so either reach out to us or leave a comment here so that the conversation can continue even after this video ends.
Although this is the final video in this series, we hope that the process of pursuing wisdom does not end with the production schedule, but continues to challenge us as we experience the new things that God is doing in creation and in our lives.